WWF has developed its vision for a sustainable Queensland. And we've asked the four major parties here in Queensland to answer questions from WWF and our supporters on their environmental policies. Amy MacMahon, lead spokes for the Queensland Greens, thank you so much for joining us today. Deputy Premier Jackie Trad, thank you so much for joining us today. My first question is on tree clearing, and it comes from one of our supporters. Can you tell me what your party is doing to address tree clearing and protecting koalas, an Aussie icon and obviously mascot to the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, this is so important. We've really had a lost opportunity this term in government with this essential piece of legislation being given to Conservative Labor ministers. And what the Greens want to see is an urgent restoration of our world-class tree clearing legislation so we can be protecting our iconic native species for everyone to enjoy. But this is not just about tree clearing, this is also about needing to stop Adani, which will result in 20,000 hectares of land being cleared. This is the need to stop unsustainable property development that is having a devastating effect on koala habitat on our urban fringes. It's about putting an end to coal seam gas that's also having an impact on native habitats. We need to make sure we kick big business out of politics and restore our world-class legislation.
Of course, one of the biggest issues that we are endeavouring to progress through the Queensland Parliament is stronger tree clearing laws. Tree clearing in Queensland is at an unsustainable rate. 1,000 football fields a day are being cleared here in Queensland. It is a devastating number. Of course, we did try and get through stronger laws, but the Queensland Parliament was such between the LNP and Cat Australia Party that we didn't get those laws through. What we're determined to do is reintroduce strong laws, but also build a $500 million land restoration fund to help landowners as well as traditional owners rehabilitate land. We know that that will have the single biggest impact in terms of preserving important habitat for koala populations going forward.
Will your party implement fully the Great Barrier Reef Task Force recommendations, and what investment will you make in its delivery?
Dermot, the task force was a concept that I devised when I was in opposition, so I'm very pleased to say that this is a Labor initiative. It is one that Stephen Miles, as Environment Minister, has led incredibly capably. What we are determined to do is implement all of the recommendations from the task force report, but also publicly report on the implementation of those recommendations. We have made a $245 million allocation to improving the water quality for the Great Barrier Reef. We know what happens on land affects the quality of water in the reef, and we are determined to reduce sediment and nitrogen runoff into the Great Barrier Reef because we know it's suffocating and poisoning our coral.
So we're supporting all of the recommendations from the Reef Task Force, and we're advocating for a rescue package for the reef. We know that we found the money for the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. We can find the money to support the Great Barrier Reef and improving water quality and runoff into the reef. But the biggest long-term threat to the Great Barrier Reef is climate change. So we're also advocating to stop Adani, to stop any new coal mines in Queensland, and to have significant investment in renewable energy generation and storage so we can be tackling climate change and protecting the reef.
What will your party do on fisheries reform and net-free zones that will protect iconic species like dugongs, turtles and inshore dolphins?
Our marine species are too precious to lose, our dugongs and our turtles and dolphins. We're calling for a net-free Far North Queensland plan so we can be protecting these vital species.
We can't have a healthy reef, we can't have healthy oceans without lots of fish in the oceans, and we do need to reduce the amount of fishing that's happening, particularly in these incredibly important environmental zones. So the Palaszczuk government released the Sustainable Fisheries strategy, and that lays a pathway forward in terms of identifying net-free zones, which we've done. We've got 3 in Queensland, and buying back commercial fishing licences so that we have less commercial operators within those important environmental areas. So if we're re-elected, we're going to fully implement that strategy.
Amy, can you tell me what your party's position is on new coal mines and the important transition to renewable energy?
We know that we can't afford to have any new coal mines here in Queensland, any new coal mines or any new coal-fired power stations. We're advocating for stopping Adani, stopping any new coal mine in Queensland, but we're also calling for a $15 billion investment in renewable energy generation and storage so we can be transitioning away from fossil fuels and supporting communities who've traditionally relied on fossil fuels. We need to see a significant shift in this area so we can be tackling climate change.
Well, Dermot, we believe that in terms of thermal coal mining, whether that's in Queensland or New South Wales or Indonesia, wherever it is, the way that we address coal mining, thermal coal mining, is to reduce the global demand for thermal coal. That's what we have to do. And already we're seeing countries move towards that. Here in Queensland, we are leading the way. We have an entrenched target of 50% renewable energy to be implemented in Queensland by 2030. We've got an ambitious target for 1 million solar rooftops by the year 2020. We're already heavily investing in sun, wind, wave technology. And only recently, the Premier made an announcement about a $30 million down payment for a thermal solar power project in far north Queensland in the Burdekin. So in Queensland, we are doing the lot because we absolutely believe that the way to reduce emissions in our atmosphere is to tackle the whole system and to transition the whole system to clean, renewable energy and to provide workers a just transition, an idea of where their economic future is going to come from, particularly in regional Queensland, and that is in renewable energy.
And finally, Amy, could you tell me what your party's position is on establishing new conservation areas to protect Queensland's threatened species?
We know we're facing a catastrophic loss of native animals here in Queensland. We know the impacts of land clearing and mining and coal seam gas extraction and property development are having a catastrophic impact on native habitats. We're calling for the establishment of new special conservation areas to protect our iconic species, but we also need to kick big business out of politics so we can be reining in mining and coal seam gas extraction and property development so we can be protecting these special places for our native animals.
I'm passionate about making sure that we conserve, the best biodiverse conservation areas within our state. We have added almost 100,000 hectares of conservation area to our overall estate here in Queensland, but we've also created a new category, a specific wildlife preservation category, so that we can make sure the highest elements of protection are afforded these special areas. If we don't protect these special areas, then we won't have the animals that we so much love here in Queensland and right throughout Australia going forward.
Deputy Premier, thank you very much for your time today. On behalf of our supporters, I would encourage you to continue to work towards a sustainable Queensland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dermot, and can I place on record my appreciation to WWF and all of your activists for years and years and years of great activism. Thank you.
Amy MacMahon, thank you very much for your time today and the insights into your party's policies. On behalf of our supporters and WWF, I would encourage you to continue to support a sustainable Queensland. Thank you very much.
Thank you.